beautiful friends. Thank you so much for stopping by. My name is Lauren from Lauren Jean, and I thought it'd be fun to do a little bit different of a video. I used to do this kind of content all the time, but haven't done it in a really long time. I just kind of want to chat about all the books that I have read in the months of October and November, and just kind of, you know, just tell you my thoughts and feelings. I can't promise that I'll remember everything about these books, but I will give you mostly what I felt about them and a short little synopsis. But let's just get right into it. The first book that I read in the month of October was The Unmaking of June Farrow by Adrienne Young. This book was so good. It was so surprising. I had no idea what this book was even about. All I had heard before I read this book was it had to do with like motherhood and family. It kind of was mysterious or like magical realism. This follows our main character, June Farrow, who comes from a line of women who end up going crazy. They kind of end up seeing things, and honestly at the beginning of this book there were some scenes that I was like, yikes, what is happening? As far as like, it was a little creepy. It's not like a horror book or meant to be scary. It just kind of was unsettling because the main character feels very unsettled. But all of these women in this family end up seeing a red door. It's their choice whether they go through the door or stay where they are. And honestly, I don't want to tell you anything else about it because I think that anything else will just kind of taint your experience, because I loved kind of being surprised by what takes place in this book. I loved it. Adrienne Young's writing is gorgeous. I am so excited to read more from this author. I know she has a few young adult books, but I'm excited for her adult books, I think, a little bit more. I'm not into like pirates, and that's what her young adult books are kind of focused around. So anyways, there is a very sweet, very emotional, heartfelt romance in this book between, well, I'm not even gonna say. I can't say anything because it'll spoil, but oh my goodness, I loved it. I've heard that some people find this book confusing, and there were parts of it that I had to stop reading and be like, wait a second, let me like put this together in my mind. But if you choose to just go with it, I think you're gonna have a really good time. I feel like this could be a new favorite book, so loved it. Then I'm so proud of myself, you guys, for what I'm about to tell you, because I read a whole series in a matter of a month. Yeah, I read all of these in the month of October, which I think is really crazy for me. Because what I tend to do is read like a book in a series and then either never finish the series or it takes me 1,000 years to finish it. But your girl read The Cruel Prince. Well, I don't think it's called The Cruel Prince series. It's called A Novel of Elfhame. So I guess Elfhame series? I don't know. Your girl did it. If you don't know about these, this is The Cruel Prince. This is The Wicked King, and then Queen of Nothing by Holly Black. I just really, really loved this world. It took me by surprise. Like, I had heard about this series. It's very, very popular. It's a young adult fantasy novel. And I just had no interest because of kind of what I've heard about it, and I honestly kind of felt like maybe it wasn't for me. I don't know, but I read it and I loved it. I feel like if you like fairy tale type fantasy, you're probably gonna like this series. So what this series is all about is that it's following our main character, Jude. My mind. Jude, her parents were actually murdered when she was very small. She and her two sisters were like taken away to this fairy tale land. So they've been living in this world. This man who took them away is raising them as a father. 10 years they've been living in this land. It's very true to fairy tale, if that makes sense. So like kind of more grim fairy tale than like Cinderella Disney version. She just really wants to belong to this land, and people don't like humans. They think that they're very weak, but the one thing that they do like about humans is that they can lie. And so if you can like get a human under your control, they can lie for you, basically, because in this world, fairies cannot lie. It felt so classic fairy tale that I just really loved it. A lot happens in the series, especially at the end of this book. Oh my goodness. I was like, excuse me? So I loved it. I thought that it was such a fun time. As far as content, from what I remember, I think it's clean, and my mind, I just like forget about content, but maybe I shouldn't even be reporting on that because honestly, I don't remember, but I had a fun time with this. Yeah, I'm really happy to have read it. I need to continue on. There's like an offshoot series about her brother, so I'm really excited to continue on in this world, but I haven't yet. But this is the main trilogy and I finished it, you guys. I feel like I deserve a little pat on the back for that. A cozy mystery that I read in October was Closely Harbored Secrets by Bree Baker. This is a part of the Seaside Mystery Cafe series. I love this series so much. This is a cozy mystery, like I said. It's following our main character, Everly Swan, and she owns and runs a tea shop and cafe on the seaside of North Carolina, right? Yeah, Charm, North Carolina. And this one takes place during Halloween, and it was so fun. Just the charm of Charm, North Carolina, just really shone through in this book because of the Halloween aesthetic and, you know, little kids dressing up and all the things. It was so atmospheric and super, super fun. I recommend for next year, if you pick up this series, to plan for this for Halloween. It was just a lot of fun. I really, really liked the mystery, and there is a little bit of a side slow burn romance happening throughout this series, which I am just 100% here for, and it's so cute. It's completely clean and just really good. I just love this series. The only thing that does bug me about this series is the main character has this like Fitbit type of watch or whatever, and I just don't understand. It's constantly beeping at her and telling her she needs to walk more, and like she's thinking to herself that she doesn't need that cake because whatever. And I don't like that in books just in general, but it just feels overdone. And this one didn't have it as much as the other books in the series have had it, so thankfully that. But I don't know, she's constantly making comments about how she's like a size 14 or whatever, and I'm like, that's not, like, I don't know. I don't like it. I just don't like it. So that is one thing I don't like about these books, but the overall mystery and the friendship and the family, because Everly has two aunts that kind of stir up trouble and get in her business, and it's just fun. I really, really like this series, so I definitely recommend. I then read Can't Help Falling by Courtney Walsh. This is part of the, what is it called? Sweater Weather series. It is so cute. I have not read any other books in this series, but this one was so good. Courtney Walsh just has a way of writing romance that I just really love. It's funny, it's lighthearted, it's not super, super heavy, and yet it doesn't feel too fluffy though. Like, she has a way of bringing in elements that feel like she's a real person or like these characters are real people, but the overall feeling isn't heavy. There are some romance out there that just rip your heart out and stomp on it, and she's just not doing that. And I love that she's not doing that because I don't like romance like that. I also need to laugh in a romance, and Courtney Walsh is hilarious. I love it. I also really had such a fun time with this one because the main character, what is her name? What's her name? Okay, Emmy. The synopsis doesn't say her name on Goodreads, but her name is Emmy, I think. According to someone's review. Okay, I can't remember. But our main character is actually like a secret podcaster. And so she is doing a podcast over romance books, but no one in her life knows about this podcast. But it's a super famous podcast. She like dubs her voiceover so it sounds like an old woman when her podcast is released. And people ask her questions and she gives romance advice even though she has never been in a serious relationship. And she's kind of been hung up on someone from her past, her best friend's brother. But when Owen, her best friend's brother, comes back to town to be a firefighter in this little town that she's grown up in, she's kind of thrown for a loop because she's been in love with him since childhood and she can't get over him. He's only seen her as his little sister's friend, except for they have had a deeper connection because when they were children, people would say that Owen was stupid. She would tutor him. They had a connection there where she believed in him. Anyways, they were just like really good friends as children. But something happened and you're not quite sure what until later on in the book, so I won't say, but something happened and she's like super embarrassed to be around him, and oh my gosh, it's so good. It's not a Christian book, but Courtney Walsh is a Christian, and so I just feel like I can really trust Courtney Walsh to not put in content that I'm uncomfortable with. I feel like she's a safe author for me to read a romance because I am very picky. I'm honestly not a big romance person because of all these things. I feel like it's hard to know who to pick and choose because I am very sensitive to like content and everything, and I don't want to put a lot of stuff in my mind, and I can just trust Courtney to have a good, heartfelt, sweet romance story. Definitely recommend this one. I would say you could read it any time of the year, but it is fun to read it during fall because there's mention of pumpkin spice muffins and all the things. So, oh, I forgot. I totally forgot. A huge part of the story. So she knows that Owen is back. No, she doesn't. She doesn't know Owen is back. Can you tell? It's been a minute since I read this book. But she ends up having a fire in her house, and the firefighter who rescues her out is none other than Owen, her best friend's brother. So things just go from there. I recommend, obviously. Then I read 2 series. Oh my gosh. Frozen Detective by Amanda Flower, and I also read Dead and Detective by Amanda Flower. I read these in a reading vlog that you can go watch and see like more in-depth thoughts on them. I thought this was the first book in this Piper and Porter mystery series, but it's not. Dead and Detective is actually the first in the series, but I just really love Amanda Flower's writing style. I think it's so good. It's very simple and easy. It's accessible. There's not a lot of fluff, but I just love that. And I think that this book, because I read this one first, just really hit the spot for me. I was craving a cozy mystery. I had been really into watching like Hallmark and Great American Family mysteries, just the clean mysteries. It's basically cozy mysteries on a movie, you know? And so I picked this one up and I just loved it. We're following our main character, Darby Piper, in this book series, and I'll explain the first one first. This one, our main character, Darby Piper, I think she goes by Piper more, is running like a detective agency with a woman named Samantha Porter. Samantha actually ends up dead. They don't think it was an accident. They think maybe she was murdered, and so there's a big twist because initially Samantha was going to leave the detective agency solely to Darby, but she didn't. She left it to her nephew, Tate Porter. She is looked at as a prime suspect because she didn't know about the will change until after the death. So she's trying to clear her name and also try to solve who murdered her business partner. It's super good. I will say this first one didn't feel quite cozy mystery because I do think that there was kind of missing like quirkier characters. That's a big hallmark of a cozy mystery, is quirky side characters, and I feel like this one just felt kind of like a straight mystery, which I really loved. But I think if you're looking for a cozy mystery with quirky side characters, you may be a little bit disappointed in that aspect of this one. But as far as the mystery and the storyline, I loved it. I had a great time. I really like Tate and Darby's relationship. You can tell, like, pretty much typically in a cozy mystery, there's always going to be a side slow burn romance and I just love it. And so I liked getting that beginning. I really liked that Darby is a private investigator. Normally in a cozy mystery, you very much get like armchair detectives. Like in this one, she's a tea shop owner, but she's trying to solve mysteries, you know? But with this series, I just really liked that it was a private investigator. And so she kind of felt like she knew what she was doing a little more, if that makes sense. I really, really liked this one. I will say, I think I liked this one better because it's following the same people, but it's set at like a very fancy schmancy ski lodge. The atmosphere in this one was so good. I think that it would be really fun to read this during winter time. This one did feel like there were a little more quirky side characters in it. In this one, our main character and Tate Porter, her new partner in the detective agency, they actually get hired to come to this fancy party because there's a doctor who is hosting this party. The wife of this doctor is hiring them to look into some threats that have been made towards the doctor, her husband, but she's kind of sketchy herself. She's not being super forthcoming about who the threats are coming from, what the threats are. She has notes supposedly that she's not sharing. So anyways, so they end up going to this party in the ski lodge and not really knowing what they're getting into. So I really, really liked this one a lot. Amanda Flower, in my opinion, is one of the best cozy mystery authors. She's one of my favorite authors, period. And so I just really liked it. Then I read 'Twas the Knife Before Christmas by Jacqueline Frost, who is also Bree Baker. Lots of times cozy mystery authors will have like pseudonyms, and also Julianne Lindsay is the same person. So if you've ever read a Julianne Lindsay cozy mystery, a Bree Baker, or Jacqueline Frost, they're all the same person. But this is the second book in the Christmas Tree Farm mystery series. This one was so fun. I really loved returning to this world again. In this one, we're following our main character, Holly. Her family own a Christmas tree farm and like little, I think, restaurant or bakery type situation. It's so Christmassy. If you're looking for a Christmas cozy mystery, this series is it. There is nothing better. In this one, our main character's best friend is looked at the prime suspect of a murder in this town, and so she's trying to clear her best friend's name. I really, really loved it. The main detective in this book series is from Chicago or Boston, I can't remember, but from like a big city, and he had come to Mistletoe, Maine to kind of get away from the hard crime and murder and all the darkness that a big city would bring if you're a detective, but it kind of has followed him around ever since last Christmas when there was another murder. So I feel like the Christmas cheese is pretty balanced out with the detective being from like a big city, a little more rough around the edges, and I really liked it. It is cheesy. The end is pretty cheesy, just with some magical elements. I'll say that, but I do think it's just fun, and if you're looking for a good Christmas cozy mystery, you can't beat this series, so I recommend. The next one that I read is Dinner for Vampires, Life on a Cult TV Show while actually being in a cult, in a real cult or something like that, by Bethany Joy Lenz. Bethany Joy Lenz was in One Tree Hill, which is a show that I kind of watched off and on way back in the day. I wasn't like a super fan, but my sisters were, and so I knew about the show and everything. I just found this to be so interesting. This is her story when she was on One Tree Hill, but more about her experience in a religious cult. It wasn't like a Jonestown situation, but like a smaller insular cult. And it was so interesting. And honestly, I just loved this book. I thought it was fantastic. I love that she was so honest and real and raw. I am a Christian, and I think it's good to hear stories of abuse, especially spiritual abuse, and not just especially, but that included, so that you can know and have your eyes open and not be able to be taken advantage of because you just trust the leaders that you're around, and that can be really hurtful. as I have experienced and as Bethany has experienced, like to the max. They were twisting scripture and very much abusing that and abusing her and taking advantage of her. They ended up stealing a ton of money from her. It's really, really sad, but I'm honestly so proud of her for sharing her story. And it really did feel so honest and so real. And I can't imagine how scary that would be to share your story, especially coming out of such a manipulative, she was under their thumb for so long, just emotionally and all of that, to share your story. I just really, really appreciate it. Love that she was so honest. I will say it's not tied up in a pretty little bow at the end because she's still in her story. You know what I mean? But I really, really loved hearing her perspectives and just how her eyes were so blind, but then how she came to see what she came to see. So loved this book. I really highly recommend the audiobook if you're going to be reading this one because it's narrated by Bethany Joy Lenz and she did such a good job. I love her. I love her acting. She's been on like a bunch of Hallmark movies recently and I just love that. So anyways, highly recommend if you like memoirs, and this one was super interesting. So yeah, the last book that I have for you is What Happens Next by Christina Suzanne Nelson. I loved this book, you guys. My friend Bethany from Bethany's Bookshelf recommended this to me. This is a Christian mystery and I just loved it so much. I read this for Keisha from A Book Like You. She hosts a bi-monthly Christian book club, and in the month of November we were celebrating the 1-year anniversary of this book club by doing a bring your own book. And so I decided to pick this for myself and we had a whole discussion on it over on her channel. I will try to remember to link the video where we were discussing all of this because I think you'll get more of my thoughts there. But this one is following our main character, Faith Byrne. She is an ex-reporter. She now hosts a podcast. It's not true crime. It's called What Happens Next, where she finds families who've suffered tragedy through loss or whatever it is, and bringing stories of redemption and hope out of those stories. But she gets a phone call, actually maybe a letter, email, I can't remember, an email I think, from a childhood best friend's sister. And turns out this childhood best friend from when she was like 10 years old went missing. Our main character, Faith, was staying with her grandma one summer and she became really, really close with a little girl named Heather. They were 10 years old and they became kind of thick as thieves. But Heather ends up going missing and they haven't been able to find her. They have no idea what happened. And Heather's mom, Dora, just kind of dissolves. She has Heather's room exactly the same as when she disappeared. She's kind of just obsessed still with finding her, which honestly, I can't imagine being in that position. I kind of am like, I would be too. If you don't know what happened to your child, how could you just move on? But it has been, I think, like 30 years or something like that since she went missing, and everyone else is like, she's probably died, you know, we need to move on with our lives. But Dora has told her other daughter, who's encouraging her to get help and counseling and move on, that she just can't. And so she makes a deal with this daughter that if the daughter gets Faith, who's the podcaster, to come and solve the mystery of what happened to Heather all those years ago, she will agree to clear out Heather's room, go to counseling, and all of those things. I really loved this book because you're getting two different timelines. You're actually getting snippets of Heather's perspective that summer, all those years ago, which really gave me like Sandlot feels for some reason. They didn't play baseball or anything like that, but I think just the time of life as a kid in the summer in the 80s just really like was reminiscent of that. You're also getting the perspective of Dora in present day and also Faith. And I loved it. They're all going through their own things and grieving different things. It was a little bit more heavy than I was expecting as far as grief and all of that, but the hope in this book was so good, and the honest questions that this mother was asking God, because she kind of has lost her faith. She's kind of seeing it like, God, why didn't you choose to rescue my baby or bring her back? You know, why? I just love that. I love those honest questions, realness that it felt. I'm definitely going to be picking up more from this author. I'm pretty sure she has a few books out right now, but I think she's coming out with another one relatively soon, because on her Instagram, she has like a cover reveal and stuff like that. I think that if you've ever read a Nicole Deese book, she kind of reminded me of the writing style and the way that like there was a deeper message going on in her books. I think that you might like this author if you like that author. So highly recommend. I'm so thankful Bethany recommended me this book because I just loved it. I really, really did. Okay, my friends, thank you so much for watching. These are all the books that I've read in these past 2 months. Let me know what your favorite books were that you've read the past couple months. I pray that you have such a great day whenever you're watching this, morning, afternoon, evening. Don't forget to hit that subscribe if you like this kind of content, and I will see you in my next bookish video. Bye, friends.